What's the best theory on UFOs or aliens you've ever heard? Story 1. If aliens are on this planet, they are likely using the ocean as a place to hide. Absolutely. The Nimitz encounter and some of the best actual video evidence we have shows that UFOs and USOs might be the same thing, and that they can easily travel through water and air both. Plus, there have been rumors about Lake Baikal in Russia for centuries. Lake Baikal is one of the deepest lakes on Earth and could absolutely harbor some crazy crap. Story 2. Consider the fact that the human race is a divided mess of contradictory intents. We have the scientific community reaching out peacefully, yet if aliens do come into the airspace of any nation, the first to greet them would be the military. You can imagine what the response of the military would be when a UFO enters forbidden airspace. Given the declassified government files regarding UFOs, it is quite likely that contact has been attempted in the past, and the results being tragic. Story 3. That if any civilization elsewhere in the universe had the technology to reach us for any reason, they'd be very likely to also be able to disguise their presence from our detection methods. That is, they could observe us close up, using nanotech, microscopic biological spacecraft, etc., and we'd never know. Story 4. The best two. I've heard we don't allow ourselves to contact lost tribes in the Amazon or other wild places. Extraterrestrials may have similar laws on a galactic scale. We split the atom, but made weapons out of them instead of trying to reach the stars. They leave us alone out of fear that we'll destroy ourselves if war accidentally breaks out. Story 5. There are so many star systems with potentially inhabitable planets out there that the chances that we have been the only life in the universe is extremely slim. The question instead is whether life arising elsewhere has managed to survive destruction and remain alive today, such that they might be able to contact us. That is to say, there have probably been countless civilizations for the past several billion years that simply haven't made it. Not just destruction. A lot of coincidences happened hundreds of millions of years ago that allowed us to progress to the point we are at now. Case in point, the Carboniferous period, where, highly simplified, trees evolved and existed for millions of years without the bacteria existing to break them down like now. So millions of years of trees piling up several hundred million years ago gave us the coal deposits that powered the Industrial Revolution. If the bacteria had evolved more in line with the trees, we might still be riding around in carriages. Story 6. That life in the universe could be so unrecognizable to us that we wouldn't even register it as being alien life. What if life on another world was not carbon-based, but another element? How would we even know what to look for since our definitions and descriptions of life are based on a completely different perspective? The universe is so big, and who knows what kind of chain of events and chemical, or even not chemical, reactions went down on the other side that led to a creation of species that behave completely different than ours. It's why I find it so weird that people think you can't have life without water. It's kind of understandable at the same time, as it's sometimes hard to imagine things outside of our scope of understanding. Story 7. UFOs are higher dimensional objects moving through our dimension. Like, if we moved a 3D object through 2D space, to a 2D being, it would look crazy weird. A hollow sphere would start as a dot, then look like a hula hoop that starts small, gets big, then small again. They'd have no idea what they were looking at. So, what would a higher dimension object look like passing through our 3D dimension? It might rapidly change shape, or appear to move at incredible speed as the whatever moved through our spacetime. Gravity wouldn't affect it, I don't think. It wouldn't appear to have any form of propulsion. Story 8. The movie Contact actually makes a good case that we haven't been visited by UFOs or aliens. Our most powerful broadcasts have traveled at best a few dozen light years from this planet. To put that into perspective, if the Milky Way galaxy was the same size as North America, the Earth would be a speck of dust floating around a knickknack on a living room table in a house in Arizona. Our most powerful broadcast signals have made it to the end of the driveway, or at best across the street. If there were a hyper-intelligent species 2 blocks over, desperately listening for signs of intelligence in the neighborhood, they wouldn't even know we existed for at least a couple thousand years. When they finally picked up our signal, our first television broadcasts, it would take their response another couple thousand years to arrive here. The even more bleak reality is that beyond a few light years, even the most powerful radio signal will be indistinguishable from background noise. Barring a civilization currently in existence around one of the very nearest stars, unlikely if only given the sheer timescales involved, will almost certainly never make contact with extrastellar life. The silver lining is that there's a non zero chance we'll find life somewhere in our own solar system, should we choose to go out and look for it. Story 9. They come from the ocean, not space. This sort of reminds me of the plot of The Castaways, an episode from the 1950s radio show X-1. The US government is conducting nuclear tests off an island in the Pacific. The local tribe, rather than be relocated, commits mass by marching into the ocean. Turns out, they were merely returning to their spaceship, which had been submerged for hundreds of years underwater after crash landing on Earth without fuel to get back home. One of the nuclear scientists overseeing the tests was actually a member of the tribe who had infiltrated society to help humans develop nuclear technology. He steals a bomb in order to fuel their trip home. It's a cool story. Story 10. There's a very simple explanation as to why abductees independently described gray aliens as looking the same. There are no aliens and no abduction took place, but rather they are abstracting residual memories left over from being infants and looking up at adults. Before an infant's visual cortex is fully developed, an adult human looking down at them would appear rounded and gray in color with large eyes. Cross that indistinct memory with a sleep state, subconscious, and standard psychological patterns, and boom, alien abduction. It also explains the sensation of being lifted, examined, and probed. Story 11. All the UFO sightings throughout history are just humans from the future on a time-traveling safari meant to observe how we were in the past. They are supposed to keep out of sight, but thanks to human-mechanical errors, there have been hiccups with their cloaking, which have resulted in being seen. That's why there have always been so many reports of them throughout history, but there has never been an attack. It's just us. Also, the reason why we don't see as many examples of UFOs now, even though pretty much everyone has a camera, is because people are not that interested in this time period, since we already document aspects of human life all the time. To add on to this, the evidence is that as we begin to rely more on technology, we will rely less on our own body, which combined with space travel will cause loss of mass, rely more on our eyes and intellect, causing our eyes and head to enlarge in order to take in more information. Likely, this advanced civilization no longer eats food, but rather has a way to synthesize nutrients directly into their systems. This will cause our mouths to shrink. Lastly, frequent space travel will mean a lack of sunlight, will cause our skin to grow pale and gray. Even further, I heard another theory that expands on this one, that the reason why they need to visit us and experiment on us is that their gene pool has essentially been corrupted and that they need fresh DNA in order to continue as a species. Story 12. The US military has intentionally orchestrated alien sightings and kidnappings, as well as funded UFO religions and conspiracy theories, to prevent people from being taken seriously should they happen to notice some experimental planes and so forth. There are no aliens, but there are US military agents in goofy spacesuits who mutilate cattle and probe deranged people to encourage them to make fools of themselves. Story 13. That they are from a breakaway human civilization that is keeping their secrets to themselves. Essentially, that someplace like Wakanda is real, or that Jules Verne really isn't science fiction. It's actually science fact. When the rest of the world was making do with steam-powered industrialization, someone figured out anti-gravity and zero-point energy from the interaction between electromagnetism and gravity. So they kept this technology for themselves and have been zipping around the rest of us keeping an eye on things. Story 14. I don't believe it, but that they live in underground caves and dwell primarily in Antarctica. I don't remember the complete theory, but people say they're an advanced race adapted for life underground, and that they have advanced machinery because they have been living on the Earth longer than humans. Interesting. My grandfather had a high security clearance with the Navy and Air Force, was stationed in Key West and also later Wright-Patterson. He did not talk much of anything he saw and was aware about, often stating some things were better off not knowing. One drunken night, my father mentioned how he can't believe there's other life in outer space, to which my grandfather replied, "No one ever said they were from outer space." Often makes me believe there's a hyper-intelligent species here on Earth, perhaps deep within the ocean. Lost city of Atlantis, perhaps. But Antarctica would make sense, especially how most of it is blacked out via Google Maps, and also is forbid from being G-visited, yet most presidents and other high-ranking government and military personnel are known to visit. Story 15. Dark Forest Theory. I found this fascinating. Little description here. For anyone wondering, The dark forest solution explains why we haven't heard from aliens by positing that they are purposefully keeping quiet. The reasoning is laid out best in the science fiction novel The Dark Forest by Liu Cixin. The plot of the book, the second in a series, concerns questions of how to best interact with potentially hostile alien life. In the novel, the argument is laid out like this: all life desires to stay alive. There is no way to know if other life forms can or will destroy you if given a chance. Lacking assurances, the safest option for any species is to annihilate other life forms before they have a chance to do the same. Since all other life forms in the novel are risk-averse and willing to do anything to save themselves, contact of any kind is dangerous, as it almost assuredly would lead to the contacted race wiping out whoever was foolish enough to give away their location. This leads to all civilizations attempting to hide in radio silence. Story 16. If you wanted to explore space, you'd send technology instead of risking the life of a scientist. The little gray-green men and other now cliché depictions are just biological computers that they can control. And that's why they look so simplistic and unidentifiable. Reminds me of robot, or droids. There are stories that purportedly say that the little green-gray aliens have slits for mouths and no organs, as though they are flesh being engineered for a specific purpose. We are already starting to 3D print human organs. Our technology would be primitive compared to theirs. Imagine continuing to improve our technology. Where does it lead? Maybe to the ability to 3D print beings that are engineered for a specific purpose. Story 17. The premise of the movie Prometheus. Lots of people did not get the movie, especially the opening shots. A group of space travelers land on a planet that can support life, but does not have intelligent life yet. Their mission is to bring life to the universe. It would take millions of years for life to evolve on this plane. So they decide to give it a boost. They played God with our evolution. The travelers draw lots for one of them to sacrifice himself to seed life on the planet. So the chosen one takes a pill to disintegrate his DNA into the water of the plant, where his DNA combines with the amino acids in the oceans and forms all life. Of all the life forms that were created, one retains the most alien attributes: humans. The planet is Earth. The theory is this is the reason for so much diversity in life on Earth, but only one species with such heightened and evolved intelligence is because we are the hybrid alien. Later, the aliens realized that giving a boost and a jump start to the DNA of humans is a violation because it does not allow for evolution of other attributes. Hey, morality, empathy, and lack of violence, ability to integrate with nature instead of trying to abuse it. So their creation, us, will pose a threat to all life in the universe once we develop space travel technology. Since the gods created us, the gods decided to destroy us with the perfect weapon, another hybrid creation, but this time combining human DNA with another alien life. On the way to deliver the perfect weapon, they die and never complete the mission. Millions of years later, we developed space travel, and in our quest to find our origins, we found aliens' remains and inadvertently completed the mission, creating our extinction. To sum it up, we are the aliens on Earth. The true extraterrestrial aliens who created us are trying to destroy us. If we survive, we will destroy all other life. Story 18. The gist is like this. Imagine in the future, we decide to settle, say, Europa, with genetically engineered humans. Since genetic engineering is still controversial, or for whatever other reason you prefer, we decide to keep them isolated from humanity, not telling them about our existence, and simply follow their development as an experiment. So now we have this new race of humanoids on Europa who aren't advanced at all and think they are alone there, albeit seeing a human every now and then, since we still have to get in there sometimes to adjust stuff. They think of the humans they see as divine beings, since we're way more advanced, obviously. At some point, a catastrophe on Earth requires humanity to leave the solar system in a rush, and the humanoids of Europa are just left there. They continue to thrive and develop, remembering humans as their gods and their religions. Humans come back to observe their children's development from time to time, and those humans become prophets in the humanoids. Now what if we are the race left behind? Story 19. The closest alien civilization, 92 light years away, died out hundreds of millions of years ago. The next closest, 460 light years from us, will begin evolving any day now and will attain technical mastery, rivaling ours in about 1 billion more years. Currently, there are 2 other civilizations in our galaxy, one waning and one waxing. The closest of them is 23,737 light years away. We don't just have to line up on a relatively close spatial scale. Time frame is as much a factor as distance. Most civilizations don't have a window of more than 20,000 years where they flourish before petering or flashing out. Let's not forget that faster than light travel is theoretical at best, wildly impractical in reality, probably requiring the energy of many stars to be useful. In our own galaxy, no civilization has even colonized more than 5-star systems, much less cannibalized them for speed juice. In short, nobody's been here, and probably nobody ever will. So it goes. Story 20. I've come across two that make sense to me. Neither denies the possibility of aliens, but both posit that humans and aliens will likely never interact in a meaningful way. Aliens are long gone. The odds that humans will cross paths with another intelligent life form is slim. What if the aliens we are looking for are an extinct race of beings that existed millions of years ago? Maybe their civilization peaked during the age of the dinosaurs, or even earlier. Who knows? They may have visited Earth when the most complex life was a single-celled organism and moved on. Any aliens that reach Earth are lone travelers. Our species is just now exploring space travel, and it takes a long time to reach other planets. Imagine if another species in another solar system, just a few hundred years ahead of us technologically, has sent out a one-way exploration mission. They couldn't possibly make it to Earth and back in one lifetime. The best they can hope for is to observe, collect data, and send it back to be received by the next generation. Story 21. That we haven't met a single one yet, because they're either as technologically advanced as us, or not as much as us. We always imagine, thanks to movies and crap, that aliens are superior beings, more advanced in every aspect. But what if all the sentient races of the universe are actually all roughly on the same level, technologically speaking? What if the reason we still haven't met them is because they, too, can't travel any further than their own solar system, or the closest astral body to them, and the reason we can't meet each other is because none of us are advanced enough, technologically speaking, to even find each other? Imagine what we think about aliens today, now applied to other races. They most likely think the same thing as us, about what they call their alien. Story 22. I might be dumb. Follow me on this ride. Me and my cousins were 100% convinced there was an alien living next door. He had a weirdly shaped pasture in his backyard. He randomly had soda machines next to the pasture that were not there or replaced with a totally different brand, with only 4 buttons. As a weirdo and geocaching funny joke, we went out there. It's so eerie seeing the things gone from out there. It's like nothing can grow in this ring of junk and trees. Funny enough, this property owner has died and it can't be found. But the overall creepiness still exists. Story 23. Due to the way the universe has developed over time, gas turned to stars, stars formed galaxies, planets formed around stars, etc. There is actually reason to believe that the Earth may have been among the first planets to become habitable. The universe is old, but not infinitely old. The first few billion years at least were entirely uninhabitable. It's possible that 4 billion years ago, when the Earth formed into something that was stable enough to leave evidence, was when the universe itself first became capable of supporting life. If that's the case, then that would make Earth one of the first planets to support life in the entire universe. Assuming that intelligent life requires a few billion years to develop on other planets, like it did here, then again we may be the very first occurrence of sapient life in the universe. For all we know, there might be an explosion of extraterrestrial life that happens in a million years. That is very little time on galactic scales, almost within a margin of error, and yet that is longer than all of recorded human history by orders of magnitude. We may simply be early bloomers who fade away before the rest of the universe produces intelligent life. Story 24. Time moves slower, closer to a black hole, and there's a big-ass one at the center of our galaxy. Anyone further in than us hasn't had enough time to evolve yet, and anyone further out from us, while possibly evolved enough for faster-than-light travel, would be coming here on basically a suicide mission. Their species would likely be extinct before they got back home. The only place aliens can feasibly come from, or that we can go to, is a narrow band laterally around the Milky Way, which reduces the Drake equation dramatically. The most feasible source of aliens is us, i.e., we go out and colonize new nearby planets. If we did that, it's quite likely that something like a comet or climatic change would disrupt the historical continuity of at least one of the planets over a long enough time period. At least one of them would get sent back to the Stone Age and forget there were ever other humans out in the galaxy. Meanwhile, both sections of humanity would experience divergent evolution, coming to appear different from each other, while being internally and functionally the same. Anatomically, modern humans have been on this planet for 300,000 years. This round of civilization has only been going on for 10,000 years. There has been enough time for our species to evolve from hunter-gatherer to spacefaring level at least 30 times over. Story 25. I think they're American military counterintelligence. The first sightings in the 40s and 50s, I think, were people just telling stories. Those blew up, of course. And we know that many purported sightings have been bullcrap. I think at that time it occurred to the US military that these sightings could be useful cover for experimental aircraft and intentionally upped the intrigue. It's hard for other nations to get a good read on the state of the USAF's capabilities if there's so much noise. I think the recent releases of videos are meant to spur people back into the UFO craze as we enter a new era of aerial combat. We've had drone bombers for a decade. Drone fighter programs must be reaching the stage where they're viable for combat operations. I hadn't considered UFOs as a means of counterintelligence in the past, but a while back, I was thinking about what capabilities a drone fighter might have, and it occurred to me that very high G maneuvers aren't a problem if there isn't a pilot present. In that case, it's very likely that a drone fighter would move in ways that are typically associated with UFOs, like quickly reversing direction entirely. That could be achieved by using turbines with exhausts that can be directed 360 degrees around the yaw axis. If that approach was taken, the aircraft would need to be roughly circular so that its aerodynamic properties are consistent regardless of the direction of thrust, so saucer-like. I've also thought about another design with various channels through the body of the aircraft for thrust direction. This one I think could look even freakier since probably it wouldn't even be generating lift with a wing, but by directing thrust through whichever channel happens to be facing downward at the moment. Imagine a sphere with a bunch of holes in it flying around, although it probably wouldn't be spherical because that would be awkward for manufacturing. Perhaps pill-shaped?